And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, let's check in with America's least interesting podcaster to see what's coming up on this week's episode. This is Gavin Newsom. Still sounds like porno music.
Yeah, it does.
This is Gavin Newsom.
And this is Richard Haas.
Who?
Richard Haas.
Some Iran expert. Gavin's talking foreign policy this week.
Which is something that's definitely under the umbrella of the California governor.
I mean, this is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is one of my favorite people at CNN when we were working there together all through the 2016 election and beyond. She is a journalist, political consultant, and strategist, and you can follow her on X at Scottie N. Hughes. Scottie Nell Hughes, welcome.
Thanks for having me, and I have to agree. That sounds like porno music, so you have to wonder what producer, who would allow that to actually be your intro and would listen through songs and say, that's it. That right there gets me excited to listen to Gavin Newsom.
Well, if you're talking about porno music and being excited, I don't know.
Oh, well, maybe that's the only excitement you get from listening to Gavin Newsom. Sorry, had to go there.
All right. Well, Scottie, there was just an election in New York City for mayor, and the socialist candidate, the candidate that doesn't run away from the label socialist but embraces it and really is one. I know there's a lot of people who get called a socialist, or sometimes they refer to themselves as socialists, but they don't really know what the actual meaning of the word truly is. This guy calls himself one and is one legitimately. The textbook definition of socialist is that you believe the government should own the means of production. And that is what this candidate buys into, where he thinks the government should be totally in charge of health care. He thinks the government should own the grocery stores and operate the grocery stores. And I guess the private sector should just go away in that regard. There are any number of other industries he believes the same rules apply to. And you scratch your head and you say, okay, the Democrats just lost a national election to Donald Trump because Kamala Harris took some positions that were way far out there, like wanting to defund ICE to pay for transgendered surgeries for illegal aliens and prisoners. And you think, okay, well, maybe if you move to the center, like what Bill Clinton did in 1992 after the Democrats lost 3 elections in a row, then maybe you'll have viability. But nope, they're going in the opposite direction. What do you make of that election?
Well, there's actually 3 ways that I take it. On the first, I'm actually excited. Yay, Raw. Good job, New York. You're going to get exactly what you've been deserving for a long time coming. So on one hand, the person that doesn't live in New York City like me goes, you know what, New York City, it's about darn time that you've preached these kinds of open-minded policies and open-mind everybody else. Sort of like what Gavin Newsom's done, but this is now in New York. You're going to finally get to suffer the consequences of it. But then I sit there and I look at some of these numbers coming back, and I really think actually, and they go, well, the socialists in the city that voted for him that won in this election. The reality of it is I actually think this was actually more of a revolt against Andrew Cuomo. I think this was the Janice Dean, Fox News Republicans that crossed over, wanted to make sure that Cuomo didn't get back on because they were so upset over the COVID policies. So I think actually, and people are really not talking about that because Janice Dean and the whole Fox crew was doing everything they could to really get this guy in office by tearing down Andrew Cuomo, who is the only other person that was going to be his real contest. Then the third part of it, and this is where I think Republicans, you talked about Democrats, but Republicans have to understand what he actually campaigned on, what Mamdini actually campaigned on, was the same thing that Donald Trump campaigned on. Our food prices are way too high. The richer, we have bad streets. He campaigned on everyday problems that we're having. The difference is how you actually handle those problems. He looks to the government. He tries to put the blame on big business, where Republicans and Trump says, no, let's actually grow business to help with our problems. But it was the same sort of messaging that we heard that made people go, okay, Donald Trump, back in November, we agree with you. Our prices are too high on the groceries. We're spending too much money. Our credit card debt is too high. We're not seeing the infrastructure that we need in this country for the taxes we are paying. That's exactly the same talking points this man campaigned on. But it's just the solutions that differ between the parties.
Let's go to your second point for a second. You said that there was a revolt that happened in New York City against Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo was the candidate who basically had the endorsement of the establishment of the Democratic Party, including people like Bill Clinton and others. Right now, if you look at the poll numbers, the approval ratings for the Democratic leaders in Congress, whether it is Hakeem Jeffries in the House or Chuck Schumer and those reading glasses on the end of his nose in the Senate, their numbers are awful. They're at historic lows right now. And you can't be at historic lows unless you're unpopular within your own party, which is what they are right now. The party came out and told New York City voters, you go out and vote for Andrew Cuomo. We don't want to be branded a socialist in the midterm elections. And they said, okay. And then they went out and they voted the opposite way. To my eye, and we're a long way away from the next presidential election, but right now people are starting to marinate in these juices. But to my eye, it seems like there is some kind of left-wing Tea Party style revolt growing within the Democratic Party. And if they can't figure out a way to make those people feel satisfied, they're going to lose control of their primary in 2028. And don't forget, this is the same crowd that took away the option of Democratic voters in the primary by essentially canceling the 2024 Democratic primary, and then instead of having an open convention, installed Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. So they had two candidates they didn't want forced down their throats, and now the Democratic Party is still trying to tell them what to do, and they're rejecting it at every opportunity. Do you think that this could be a cycle where a disruptor in the Democratic Party wins the nomination over whoever it is that's the preferred choice among the Democratic Party establishment?
Well, Johnny, I want you to keep that opinion. I want to keep it marinating because we are going to eventually throw it on the barbecue and try it out next year in these midterms, and we're going to see what's going to fry or if it's just going to continue to stay rare. Here's a couple things. You brought up so many good points to digest in what you just said, talking about food. But I think the biggest one is I think what you're seeing for so long, Republicans have just thrown at the Democrat these key words, socialist, communist, and we've just thrown it at every Democratic candidate that has been put their name on the ballot with a D by their name. And to a certain extent, there is an element of that within the party. But in this case, when you actually have a real one, it kind of glosses over. The Democrats go, just like we Republicans, we have had terms called to us fascist and all the names they try to make on the right side of the aisle. These are terms that have been labeled to all Democrats on the left side of the aisle. So the term socialist does not resonate like it should from the 1950s. Maybe in that generation, they go, oh, my gosh. It doesn't sound the alarms and the red flags that it should be sounding as to what a true socialist believes the American government can do. But you are correct. Johnny, the last 2 weeks, all we've heard, especially considering the Middle East crisis, is how divided the Republican Party is. And they're correct, and we're having this very public battle right now within our family. I mean, when you have Mark Levin going up against, Tucker Carlson, I don't want to sit back and watch that fight. I don't want to have anything to do with it. So our fight's very public. But what that election showed is there's a real divide happening right now within the Democrat Party. They're doing a better job of keeping it in-house and keeping it under wraps, but the voters are showing the results of it. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And the voters are showing that they're very divided because, hands down, the establishment definitely would have liked Andrew to be elected. And I do believe he was going to use this to try to catapult himself in 2028 up to the presidential level if he would have been successful. And that's what the establishment, I think, was hoping for.
What do you think the powers that be in New York City are going to do about this? Because you have the big financial houses that are there, Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch and all of the others who are headquartered out of New York. You have John Castimedes, who owns WABC, the big talk radio station in New York, but made his money in the supermarket industry. So let's just take that for example. He says he wants the government to own the supermarkets. I don't know what that means. Is he going to use eminent domain to just take over the supermarkets and put the government in charge? Is he going to buy his own supermarkets and have the taxpayers subsidize the food so that he undercuts the private supermarkets? I don't know what he has in his mind in terms of what he's going to do with this, but that's basically what he promised the voters of New York. If you're John Castimedes and you are a billionaire and you have a guy who's essentially trying to figure out some way, one way or another, to destroy your business, you have a lot of skin in the game here. Do you think the big financial houses and the John Castimedes and people who are big players in any number of other industries are going to say, okay, we can't let this happen. We need to pick an alternative candidate, whether it's Eric Adams or Curtis Sliwa or Andrew Cuomo or whomever, and we are all going to put all of our chips on that person, and we're going to go out and we're going to kneecap this socialist son of a bitch.
Yes, and yes. And let me tell you, if Letitia James and her crowd hadn't already run out the pro-business capitalist in New York City, this guy definitely will. I agree with you. When I saw the video of him saying, it sounds all warm and fuzzy, and I think you and I agree that it's very expensive to go to the grocery store. But tell me, what is one private business sector that government has taken over and it's been a positive for the people who actually use it? It's not. Of course, it might, they would open it up. It's going to look like a great super Walmart. But talk to me in 10, 20, 30 years. And let me point out that the reason why this is all happening, why food prices are so high right now, is because of the socialist agenda that made us have to skyrocket our hourly wage workers up to $20, $30, $40 an hour in various states. That's why our food prices are so high, amongst other reasons. So obviously, you cannot solve socialism by more socialism. That mathematics doesn't work. But I think what you're going to see here, you are going to see more businesses start pouring out. But I think ultimately this is going to be, if you're going to put in Eric Adams, who has definitely taken more of the conservatives, and we're hearing that they are trying to push Siwa out, that if he versus this candidate that the Democrats have elected as their nominee, I think Eric Adams is going to have a better chance of winning, just because you've already seen, Trump, I think at this point, for his own personal business, will try to get involved with it. But once again, like I said, the ultimate answer is to New York City. You cannot solve socialism with socialism. It just, the mathematics will not work out, and I think businesses will quickly exit. The only state that's safe from them exiting to, though, is California, because like I said, this guy is going to give Gavin Newsom a run for his money as to who can run a city to the ground quicker.
Well, you make such a good point about the grocery stores, because I've never worked in that industry, but I know people who do, and they all tell me the same thing, which is that the profit margin in those stores is basically 1%. Whatever it is that they're charging you in the grocery stores, unless you go to Whole Foods or something, is typically 1% more than what they're paying for it, and they basically make their money on volume. Well, if you're the state-run store, how is it that you make the prices lower unless you're losing money on every item that you sell? Because it's not the greed of the grocery industry that's causing prices to be high. It's just the nature of the market. It's the nature of inflation in the economy.
No, you're correct. And like I said, having to pay employees. This is why you're seeing, they say, we've got a worker shortage. We don't have a worker shortage. We have plenty of teenagers that can bag groceries. But you're finding these grocery stores are going over to computer and self-checkout, not because they can't find workers. It's because it's cheaper to put in a computer system than to pay a worker $25, $30 an hour to bag groceries. So that's why you're seeing, that's how they've previously tried to combat these hourly workers, but it's still not working. The prices are still going up. And let me just point out, there was a lot of great, government assistance programs that help the lower incomes when it comes to groceries. So anybody who's going hungry in America today, they obviously need to go visit their resources. Where these grocery store prices are hurting is the middle class. And that right there is what speaks to it, because the middle class are the ones that are having to pay. They don't get the financial assistance to pay for the $5 milk and the $8 eggs, even though it's gone down a little bit. So I think that is where, going into the midterms, Republicans and Democrats alike, if you're going to want to win, you're going to have to specifically tailor your message to the middle class, because we're literally the forgotten class at this stage.
Yeah, well, this is the only country on planet Earth where the poor people are fat and the rich people are thin.
Yes, but that's because of Ozempic. Let's just call it for what it is.
That's probably true. Last question before you go. We already have a ghost of Christmas future here, and that is the city of Chicago, which had a brain-dead Democrat mayor that everyone understood was a failure, and that was Lori Lightfoot. So the teachers' unions put up a candidate who was a self-described socialist, and now he has what, an 8% approval rating? Do the people in New York not read the papers?
They can't say no, because once again, it's almost like we're in a race to the bottom when it comes to these municipalities right now. And unfortunately, I'm starting to think of the point. I get angry at the politicians. I think the politicians are really dumb. These candidates are really dumb. Actually, they're really smart. I'm going to start criticizing the voters that not only put them into office thinking there's going to be a difference, but keep them in office. And I'm going to say that about a mayor's race, a congressman's race, or a senator's race. If you keep electing somebody and they continue to fail you, you're a part of the problem.
Scottie Nell Hughes, journalist, political consultant, strategist, and one of my favorite people at CNN. You can follow her on X at Scottie N. Hughes. Scottie Nell Hughes, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you, Johnny.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You could download all the episodes. You could do what George Gascon does to himself every night because he's unemployed.
Do a Google on YouTube.
Or get one of our great apps, the KABC app, the KSFO app. Easiest way to listen live to these radio stations wherever you are around the world, and download all the podcasts.
You understand what I'm telling you, man?
And Randy, we're going to be on the radio in Fresno.
How exciting is this? Starting this Saturday at 2 o'clock, you're going to hear the Fix California Hour on KMJ in Fresno. That is AM 580 and 105.9 FM in the Central Valley. We're going to be on every single Saturday from 2 to 3, bringing the Fix California Hour to the Central Valley. We are so excited to be expanding the John Phillips Show footprint.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
790 KABC welcomes Dispatch and John Butler with band at the Pacific Amphitheater at the OC Fair on July 26th. It's all part of the Toyota Summer Concert Series. Tickets are on sale now at pacamp.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. All concert tickets include admission to the OC Fair. Tickets furnished by the Pacific Amphitheater. Good luck dialing.
You know, Randy, over the weekend, I spent some time over at Disneyland in Anaheim. And one of the things that I did when I was there was ride the monorail. And I thought to myself, Walt was able to put together a monorail in, what was it, the 60s?
It's been around for a long time. They had the People Mover at the World's Fair in like 65.
Oh, yes. And we're still waiting on that bullet train, which is never going to happen.
And while you hear people boasting about all the economic benefits and all the jobs created out of California's non-existent high-speed rail project, there are certain business owners in a place like Fresno that have definitely bought in and thought, hey, this is going to be a big economic boomer, so I better make sure I invest early, which includes a tattoo parlor in downtown Fresno at the still non-existent high-speed rail station that has to constantly close because of construction.
Oh, good Lord.
For more on this tattoo parlor's journey, we go to Fox 26 in Fresno.
Well, we continue our coverage tonight of California high-speed rail. Fresno tattoo artist thought it would be a great investment in having a shop near the high-speed rail station in downtown Fresno.
Now, was the idea here because the train is going to go from Merced to Wasco, and maybe people get out of prison in Wasco, maybe the first thing they'll want to do once they get out of prison is go get a tattoo?
That's generally speaking what happens.
But now, as Fox 26 reporter Rich Rodriguez explains, after dealing with sidewalk issues and dust problems from the project, he's tired of all the headaches.
The Ink Palace, a Fresno tattoo shop, sits just a short distance away from the future downtown station for high-speed rail.
That thing's been sitting there for like over a decade.
And by future, they mean when apes control the world, because that's when this thing is going to be completed.
Owner Omar Huerta was sold on the Tulare Street location.
I thought it would be neat to be across the street from the speed rail station, so it sounded like a great investment, which is why I even chose this location here, this area.
What is it about train stations and tattoo parlors? Remember earlier this year we were doing that story of the streetcar that's going to go down in Garden Grove, and the tattoo parlor was having issues over there.
Well, if you think that the bullet train is going to bring you your clientele to a tattoo parlor, you're making certain assumptions about that ridership.
We don't even know what the expected clientele is supposed to be.
Well, because they haven't even been born yet.
More than a year later, Huerta says it's been one headache after another.
And tear out the sidewalks. I had no wheelchair access. I had just literally no access to the even enter the shop. It was just nothing but dirt, and there was holes everywhere.
So there's all these closed-off construction areas that have been sitting there the whole time. He can't even get into his shop, and he can't even ask any disabled people to come into his shop because there's no wheelchair ramps because they took them out.
Okay, so his clientele, he believes, are people who ride trains and people in wheelchairs.
That want tattoos.
Yes.
Huerta says the sidewalk in front of his shop has been ripped out and replaced 3 times.
Oh, my.
Too often, he says, work begins without businesses receiving proper notices.
Because, you know, when you've got that steady hand of the ink pen, the last thing you want is a bunch of jackhammering in the background to distract you.
Well, and they claim that they need more time to get the train done. Well, what are you spending your time doing? Well, we jackhammer up sidewalks, we replace them. Then we jackhammer them up again, replace it again. Then we jackhammer it a third time and replace it a third time.
The dust problem inside and outside his shop is even worse.
Me being afraid of me doing a tattoo and they just have all kinds of debris going inside. So I had to cancel that appointment due to safety reasons.
He has to close his shop because there's so much dust in the air, you can't safely do a tattoo without getting those particles inside the atomized blood.
What is this, Ground Zero at the World Trade Center?
This is supposed to be the crown jewel, the center of the high-speed rail.
Huerta also had to hire cleaning crews to keep up with all the dust. The Fresno County Health Department visits often.
Oh, imagine if they red tagged him because of the high-speed rail.
So when we get visits from the health department, and you know they analyze everything. You know, right when they walk in, why do you have dust? Why do you have this? Why do you have that?
Why? Because Gavin Newsom said so. That's why.
Well, it's not like he can go, well, look at the high-speed train that keeps going by out in front of the business.
Why do they keep jackhammering his street over and over and over again?
Well, where are you supposed to park if they keep tearing everything up?
It's almost like, you know, those 15,000 jobs that they love to tell you that they created? It's almost like there's really nothing to do because there is no train, so they just keep ripping up the same sidewalk.
Well, if you keep ripping up the sidewalk, you have to put your equipment somewhere, which I assume is in the parking lot, so there's no place for anyone to park if they want a tattoo.
Huerta wants someone from high-speed rail to hear his concerns and make things better.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Good luck. Throw a coin in a well, buddy.
He likes his location and has no plans to move. Rich Rodriguez, Fox 26 News.
Huerta tells Fox 26 that he estimates he's lost about $20,000.
$20,000 in lost business because of the high-speed rail construction.
Well, he better get on his motorcycle and set up shop somewhere else.
That's in business as a result of canceled appointments and closures. Here's High Speed Rail's response. The authority is working with various local businesses as we continue construction in downtown and Chinatown areas, including Ink Palace. Our team has had field visits with Omar Huerta and have provided notifications prior to the start of work.
No, what he said is you don't do that.
No, they basically just told this man to drop dead.
In December 2023, sidewalks were removed and to be replaced along Tulare Street, including those in front of Ink Palace for construction of the underpass. Temporary pathways were installed for pedestrians by the request of Mr. Huerta to access his business, and a temporary concrete sidewalk was placed in March of 2024. The Tulare Street underpass is expected to be complete this summer.
No, it won't be.
Yeah, right. No, they basically just told this man to drop dead. And with all the particles that he's inhaling, he just might.
You believe you're a tattoo artist and you have to cancel appointments because thanks to the high-speed rail construction, there's too much dust and it's not safe. So no tattoo of mom on your shoulder for you.
Can you imagine what those calls must be like? Someone has an appointment to get a tattoo, but the sidewalk and the parking lot's all busted up for whatever reason. And he calls him up and says, hey there, X. We're going to have to cancel your appointment today. We're going to have to reschedule for some day in the future. Oh, yeah, why is that? Well, there's no room in the parking lot for your truck nuts or your truck. It's all busted up again. So how's January? And Randy, it's time for one more addition to the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this edition involves yet another vice mayor behaving badly.
Yeah, but this one didn't ask the cholos to come out.
I want to know where all the cholos are at.
But this is quite a week for vice mayors. Now, this is the vice mayor of a town called Live Oak near Sacramento, where he's now being accused of arson and insurance fraud.
Whoa. That's not becoming of a vice mayor.
For more, here is ABC 10 in Sacramento.
New tonight, a city leader in Live Oak is facing some pretty big legal trouble, arrested and accused of being part of a conspiracy involving arson and insurance fraud.
The case dates back to a suspicious fire in Butte County last year. ABC 10's Carlos Pausanga is digging into what happened, what led to the arrest, and who's still wanted.
In Live Oak, Vice Mayor and two other men were arrested by the FBI on $1 million warrants.
Million? Oh, boy.
Oh, so they were trying to scam the insurance company by burning something down and claiming it was an electric fire.
Well, of course.
Accused of...
And by the way, those claims always get paid out.
I have never known anyone to ever receive any money from any insurance company for legitimate reasons.
Accused of burning down a farmhouse and cashing in on insurance. Aaron Palma was elected to the council last November, but investigators say the arrest stemmed from a fire in early 2024. ABC 10 obtained these photos of the fire that severely damaged a farmhouse. This is the property at the center of this case on Ord Ferry Road, just outside of Chico. You see that area over there? That is where that farmhouse burned down. Now it has been replaced with fruit trees. The Butte County District Attorney's Office say these three men sold the orchard and then collected $200,000 from the insurance company.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Doug McIntyre used to say this all the time whenever we do a crime story. He said, never steal anything that's not enough to retire on. You're a vice mayor of a town. I assume you have working years left in you. And you're willing to risk everything you have to steal $200,000?
Split between three guys. It's not that big of a payday.
No, you split that between three guys. That's not even the value of a showcase showdown on The Price is Right.
Investigators say Gurtej Singh bought the property in April of 2023 using a USDA loan.
Oh, okay. This is why the FBI is involved. They took out an ag loan on this orchard to build a farmhouse, insure it, and then burn it down to pay back the loan and profit.
Yeah, this isn't exactly Ocean's 11.
This is not just defrauding an insurance company. This is defrauding the federal government.
How did Shang Tao not get in on this action?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think by the time this scheme was already cooking, she was already being looked at.
They say just weeks later, he transferred half ownership to brothers Aaron Palma and Simran Palma.
Yeah, that's not suspicious. So you take out a federal loan from the agriculture department to buy this land and then immediately take out a big insurance policy on it and transfer ownership to your co-conspirators.
They really thought this through, didn't they?
Who is a Live Oak School Board member.
Oh, great. They're in this too.
So that town's not going to have any elected officials left.
Then came a fire, followed by a sale and an insurance payout.
At the time of the fire, my client was at a family event in another county. Why a year and a half later, all of a sudden, something's coming up?
Boy, you really can get an attorney to defend you for anything.
There are a lot of attorneys out there in this world.
Attorney Michael Barrett represents the vice mayor and is helping the other two men arrested find legal help.
But I've known Aaron and his family for many, many years in this community. He's a pillar of the community.
Can they use that insurance money to pay their legal fees?
I'm sure they'll try. Whether or not they can, that's a different story.
This allegation is just, there's nothing to it.
Attorney Barrett wonders if this was politically motivated.
I'm ready to turn over all the rocks and see what crawls out.
What is the allegation here?
Oh, my God. The big city crooks, they're one breed of cat. But you go to the small town crooks, and it's a whole different animal.
I'm ready to turn over all the rocks and see what crawls out.
Well, start turning.
The city of Live Oak tells ABC 10 they are monitoring the situation and have no further comment. Reporting from Butte County, Garj Paulsunga, ABC 10.
Garj Paul, thank you. Prosecutors also say the men hired a contractor, Javier Molina Bravo, who owns Big Dog Handyman, to renovate the property. Officials say he's accused of writing bad checks to buy thousands of dollars in materials.
So everyone in this town is a dirtbag, huh?
Yep.
He never showed up to court and is now considered a fugitive.
Every single part of that story is delicious.
People think sometimes that we pick on the big cities too often. Well, this week, Cudahy and Live Oak have had their turn in the barrel.
Let's see. What's the population of Live Oak, a city in California in Sutter County? 9,443.
Well, there's a vacancy on the council and on the school board.
And in case you were wondering, the population of Cudahy, which has gone down in recent years, probably to murders, is 21,000.
Okay, so they're still bigger than Live Oak.
They are.
For the time being. All right, Randy, the big news for us is that we are now on the air in Fresno and so happy to be there.
Starting this Saturday and every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m., you can hear the John Phillips Show, the Fix California Hour on KMJ. That's AM 580 and 105.9 in the Central Valley. That is a massive signal that goes all throughout Central California. If you want to listen to it on the weekend and anywhere you are, whether you're listening to us in Southern California on KABC or Northern California on KSFO, you can stream it on KMJNow.com. That's KMJNow.com. But we are so happy to be broadcasting in Southern California on KABC, Northern California on KSFO, and now on the weekends in Central California on the big KMJ.
Do you think they get our signal in Live Oak?
Oh, yeah. I think you get it. I think you can get KMJ and KG and KSFO in Live Oak.
They can listen to us during the week and on the weekends while they're sitting in jail.
We're taking over the state, Johnny.